Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Vaida, and I am the Executive Director of the Northeastern Pennsylvania Chamber Music Society, whose mission is to foster the growth of chamber music in the Northeastern Pennsylvania region. Welcome to the first installment of our 2021 Music Matters series. Tonight's conversation is made possible from the generous support of our patrons. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we hope you will consider making a donation so that we can continue to bring you quality programs such as these free of charge. For more information on NEPACMS, our Music Matters series, or to make a donation, please visit www.nepacms.org. Please note that tonight's conversation is being recorded for possible rebroadcast at a later date. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you all tonight's guest, Nancy Sanderson. Nancy Sanderson, the Northeastern Pennsylvania Philharmonic's Executive Director, formerly was the founder and director of the Performing Arts Institute of Wyoming Seminary, an international program for pre-college students with exceptional talent in music, music theater, and dance. Prior to this position, she was adjunct instructor of flute at Wilkes University and the director of Encore Music Camp of Pennsylvania, which she started a 6-week summer program and later expanded to include a full-year component. In addition, Nancy has taught elementary and middle school level at Wyoming Seminary, the Leo School, and at Oneonta Public Schools. As a professional flutist, she has performed with the Anastasia Flute and Guitar Duo, the Birch Hill Consort, the Glimmerglass Opera, Catskill Symphony. She has an active flute studio from which many of her students have been accepted for professional studies in prestigious schools such as Eastman, University of Michigan, Northwestern, and Manhattan School. Please again, welcome Nancy Sanderson. Thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to having a wonderful conversation. So for tonight, as I was, talking to Nancy prior to this, we have and we could speak for hours on end, I'm sure, on any one of these subjects. And, we're happy to do so. However, we'd love this to be more of a conversation with all of you. So with that in mind, if you do have questions, feel free to ask them as we go along at any point. To do that, we ask that you have one of two options. You can put that message into the chat and you can ask your question that way. Or if you want, you can also raise your hand and ask the question yourself. For those that are unfamiliar with the Zoom, or less familiar, shall I say, I think we all have a pretty good handle in Zoom these days, though. If you go down to the bottom of your screen on the reactions, you can just click raise your hand and that will give you one of these. All right. So Nancy, again, thank you for being here.
Yes. It's a pleasure.
So let me just ask you a general question. How do you feel about the state of classical music today?
Well, there's no simple answer to that, because today, not only are we facing the challenges that all musicians and orchestras and chamber musicians are facing due to COVID, have really changed the dynamics of classical music. Prior to the pandemic, we were already in trouble. Orchestras and music teachers and anyone involved in the field have been concerned that there's a drift away from classical music, and everyone is trying to get creative about bringing people back into the fold. And I think with good reason. It's, and I'm sure we'll be discussing that later, but so the future of classical music depends on several things. We've got to get through the pandemic so that we can have live concerts and be making music with young people again. Young people are our future audiences, and we have to be sure that they're nurtured and they get quality experiences so that they develop an aesthetic that they carry into their adult lives. So
you said, pre-pandemic, orchestras and classical music was already in trouble. Why do you think that is? I mean, I have my own kind of theories about that, but I'd love to hear.
Well, Yeah, yeah. There's so many reasons for it. The music programs in our public schools are underfunded, and music teachers aren't able to produce the programs that they used to be able to do because of funding for them. And that's a real concern. And a lot of orchestras have tried to step up to the plate and offer programs for public school students that can fill the gap. And the wisest of orchestras throughout our country try to create really good partnerships with public school music teachers, because those relationships are going to build up students and develop those audience members for 15 years from now. In addition to that, as a culture, things have changed. We're doing a lot of online activities and gaming on our phones, and so many things that are counterproductive to an aesthetic live experience. And so our kids are unable to tap into the just incredible experience of making music or experiencing it by being an audience member. And so I think that there has got to be a balance between the new technology that is sucking our kids right into, and an experience that it has a beauty and aesthetic built into it. And I can tell you this story. Our son, Duncan, is currently an engineer for green energy. And he knew from an early age that he didn't want to be a professional musician. He saw his parents and thought better of it. But actually, now when he's interviewed by radios and things like that, he says that growing up with music around him all the time really helped him develop a sense of creativity, a sense of problem solving, a sense of beauty and aesthetic. And he really values having had music as a young person. And I think that that should be one of the goals. We should not be trying to make professional musicians. We should be trying to make people who have a life that's more enriched because they have the experience of sitting in an audience and listening to a live symphony orchestra. There's nothing better. It's so powerful. It's so moving.
Yeah, after you said that a little bit about Duncan, I'm glad you brought that up. I've always kind of hated that argument that gets tossed around that let's teach our kids classical music in order to improve test scores, right? Because they say the correlation between playing classical music and being good at math, right? But I think that completely misses the point, right? And I think,
well, boy, you just pushed me off into the total opposite direction of where we were going, John Michael.
And this is the fun of it, because I was not planning to go here, at least at first, but
yeah, but you brought it up. So test scores, I agree with you completely on that. Has never been my goal in being a music educator. But there's a really special program in Philly called Play on Philly. And it's run by a very dear friend of mine, Stanford Thompson. And it's got the attention of all of the United States, and people are contributing a lot of money to it. And what it does is it goes into areas where there are underserved students, and they set up this music program that is 2 hours every day after school, Monday through Friday. And you have to agree to it. And there's a whole set of very conscious rules that they made, like dressing appropriately, addressing your teacher politely and respectfully, practicing a certain amount of time. The expectations are very clear. But what happens is these kids who are put instruments in their hands at a very young age end up in ensembles, both chamber, string, and full orchestra, and they play such beautiful and well-prepared and high standard orchestral music, and it's just so exciting. And so I'm passionate about that program and what it does for kids and what it does for kids who haven't been exposed to those opportunities. But on their website, they have a list of all the ways that this program has helped these students, and they have a professional firm coming in and really just taking statistics. Their test scores went up by 20%. Their English scores went up by, I don't know, 25. I'm just off the top of my head. But it really did help those things too. And although no one in Play on Philly used that as their primary goal, it happened. Mm-hmm. I think the confidence that it builds to be able to do something well, the confidence of having friends who think the same way you do, the confidence of having adults in your life who really want you to succeed, all of those things put together, don't just benefit a musical talent. It benefits the whole child. And yeah.
Right.
Stanford always says social wellness through music and emotional wellness through music. And it's really true. And we'll come back to that program later because I really could talk a lot about that program.
Is that at all affiliated with the El Sistema?
It's inspired by it, but they definitely have taken it one step farther.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For those that don't know, perhaps maybe you could explain what El Sistema is actually. I'm vaguely familiar with it. I had a really nice conversation with a colleague of mine a couple months ago. He started a El Sistema program in Phoenix, and he was telling me how just the relationship between the student and the teacher, and then the student becomes the teacher, and but perhaps you know more about that than I do.
I can't say that I do know more about it, but it's a program that started in Venezuela, and Dudamal had a lot to do with it. And Dudamal is a pretty inspiring guy. And yes. And he just got the people of that country so fired up through the El Sistema program, and kids who had nothing, who are living in the poorest of circumstances, were given instruments and lessons, and all of a sudden they were playing in orchestras, and it was like this light bulb went off in each one of those kids, and it was really exciting. And they went on tours, and it's a wonderful program. And so from that, El Sistema programs have been established all over the world, and they're really helpful to kids. And again, underserved kids are where people are really focusing their attention, because it's a way to just help them have some positive influences in their lives.
I don't know if you've been onto YouTube and seen some of the performances of them, but I send these to my students all the time. It's so inspiring to see a stage full of youthful musicians. I mean, just making absolutely world-class music too.
Right.
For all of those out there, if you Google BBC Proms Mahler with Dudamel, there's some inspiring performances there. So again, if anyone has questions, feel free to chime in at any time. So I know education is something that you are obviously very, very passionate about, right? So what do you see, I guess, the future of musical education? And I'm thinking about what we were talking about with technology too. Kids have a lot of technology at their disposal, I think this maybe the Zoom thing is here to stay, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. You know, I personally was able to connect with students from across the country. Otherwise, I would have never met. So I'm just wondering what do you think the future holds?
I'm not exactly sure if you want me to comment on the future of music education in regards to technology or just in general.
Uh, Perhaps both. I mean, how could technology help music education?
I think it really can. The future of music education has to be, well, it takes a village. And we can't just depend on public school teachers to make all these open-minded children and great musicians. It's too much. There's too much work to be done. And of course, like I said, they're underfunded. So I think that any regional Philharmonic orchestra should be gathering resources to help music teachers do their job. I think, like I know you do, you give music clinics all over Northeastern Pennsylvania, and we've all got to pitch in. And so the Northeastern Pennsylvania Philharmonic writes grants, and we get funding so that we can use right now technology to give elementary school students demonstration videos on the instruments of the orchestra. And we give them interviews on meeting players in the orchestra so that when they go to the concert, they feel like they have a connection there. And we get funding for some of our musicians to give master classes to high school students. And we also get funding to have our musicians make videos on composers so that there can be a start on teaching history and recognizing the music of composers. So, the teachers who know about what we're doing are so glad, because it's hard to teach virtually. And here they have something tangible that they can use. They can use 15 minutes of video to show their children. And it's done by our musicians. And it's just a really healthy exchange between music teachers and our musicians. And our musicians really, really love doing projects like this. We also have something called the mentorship program, and you have to audition to be a member of the mentorship program. But all students get a private lesson, probably about 12 a year, from an orchestra member. They get coaching for their chamber music ensembles. They get to play in a side-by-side orchestra for the young people's concerts. So that's pretty exciting. And in this age of the pandemic and quarantining, our music teachers have been giving those mentorship lessons on Zoom. And it's been working really well. We've even been doing chamber ensembles through Zoom. So it's a technology that's really kept us it connected with young people. And so I agree with you. It's here to stay. And we definitely can use it in a way that benefits music teachers in the area and music students.
Great. So we have first question from audience member. How was the response participation to both of your online efforts of music performances?
Unbelievable. We never anticipated how much response we would get. We on social media, on primarily Facebook, did a collaboration with Joanna Arduino in the Ballet Theater of Scranton. And we had the musicians playing the Nutcracker, and the dancers dancing to it. And so there was these video projects of 4 dances. And we started looking at the Google Analytics of these videos that were posted on Facebook. One of them got 16,000 views.
Wow.
I mean, we were so stunned by it. And here's something even more surprising. The biggest population of the people on that particular Google Analytics was men between the ages of 25 and 40. Yeah, we were really surprised. Now, truth be told, I mean, we had our musicians and our patrons trained, press share. So we had a lot of people doing that, but it really helped us have a presence. And we don't know most of the people that viewed them. I mean, we can see it on the Google Analytics, but, you know, I just hope that translates into an expansion of our audience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe we can circle back a little bit. I was thinking about something when you were talking about just involving your orchestra musicians and whatnot. Did you happen to read Julia Fisher's open letter? This came out a couple of months ago. Julia Fisher's a German violinist, and she penned an open letter. I forget in what publication it came out in. Perhaps it was the Strad, just advocating that the future of classical music should be more local. And she went on to, you know, just opine about, you know, conductors going and having 5 different orchestras and, you know, spending a week here, a week there, and soloists traveling the world, and how that it'd just be healthier for our art form, frankly, if it was more of a local endeavor. So,
yeah.
I thought about this a lot, you know, in the past, not just during the pandemic, but for the past, you know, years. So I wonder your thoughts on that.
Well, it's complicated. You know, as most everyone knows, our orchestra members are primarily from out of town, primarily from New York City, some from Philadelphia, and we have about a dozen local musicians in the orchestra. And so, you know, when you say it should be local, I think that there should be a relationship with local people. And I have to tell you that our conductor, Melise Brunet, takes that relationship very seriously. She will go on high school music classes and teach a whole Zoom class on any topic that the teacher wants. She will, she just does so many things to connect with people here. And she and I have often cooked dinner for patrons, and we just, you know, it's really important to be involved in the community. I appreciate our orchestra members because they understand what you say about the future of music being local. And so they do really give their time to this community. And I was really touched when the pandemic first started to become a concern in March. Some of our musicians got together and put together a video that was in tribute to frontline workers in Northeastern Pennsylvania. And it was beautiful. It was Rachmaninoff vocalese. And while it was playing, there were pictures of all of our frontline workers from hospitals, from grocery stores, from, you know, all over. And the whole video was so moving. Like, I don't know very many people that had a dry eye by the time that video was done. And when I asked those musicians if they would like to be paid for that video, they said, absolutely not. You know, this is our gift. This is our statement to the people of NEPA. And that really is the sentiment of the people in our orchestra. They understand that they have to have a relationship with our community.
So how do you feel? kind of switching gears here a bit, but
Okay.
your relationship, I guess, with musicians, with the orchestra, do you think that's kind of had to evolve over the past, year almost? I mean, how has that affected what
Yeah,
you?
I feel so lucky because, I've taught pretty much every grade level from pre-kindergarten to graduate school, and because of that, I've had the opportunity to really get to know the music teachers in this area. And so that's made it very easy for me to connect with them and let them know of the services that we could provide. And um, so it was the transition from live services where we would go visit schools and send our musicians to Zoom meetings and things like that was actually a relatively easy transition.
Hmm. Yeah. What about then? Like you said, you spent a large part of your career teaching, performing. Did you feel like becoming the head of an orchestra was the next logical step, or was that, I don't know, did you see that?
Oh boy.
Because
um,
I remember when you first took the position, I think like with everyone that knows you, yeah, I see that, you know. I wasn't
well,
surprised, shall I say.
yeah. Well, first of all, no one misled me into what I was walking into. I knew, I knew that the orchestra was in trouble financially, and I knew that because of it, we were also declining in audience numbers. And so, you know, I knew the challenges ahead, and I was ready for it. And I felt very strongly that it had to be a local person that could bring it back. I didn't think we could hire some unknown quantity and have them come in and try to build these things back, try to bring it back. And so I did it. But I have to say that anyone who takes a job in arts administration has to see that glass half full, because there are so many challenges and there's so many brick walls that you run up against, that if you just allow yourself any negativity, you can't get the job done. And it's not to say that you should be in denial and dishonest with yourself, but you let things discourage you. And I think that I think that we have a board who feels the same way. Our board is a really great board, and they're pretty positive minded, and so, and I think that there's there's been a lot of excitement that we've been able to keep the lights on this year. It's a lot of orchestras have not been able to keep the lights on due to COVID, and we're doing okay. And I don't want to talk about it too much and jinx it, but we can see that we'll make it to the end of the season doing projects. We have an interesting collaboration that we're working on now for mid-May that if it works would be awesome. But we also know that next season, when we start our live season again, we have the funds to pull it off. And so that's a good place to be in.
So I wonder your opinion. You must have seen the news about like the Met Orchestra and what's been going
Yeah.
on there. For those that aren't aware, the Metropolitan Opera is, I think, the only major orchestra that hasn't been paying their players. And then recently they actually held a New Year's gala and hired non-Met players to perform there. So I'm curious your thoughts if you care to share them. If not, of course.
Yeah, no, I want to. Um, when you look at the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, and you look at the Northeastern Pennsylvania Orchestra, we have such opposite budgets. You know, our budget is so small, and we don't have the money to continue to pay musicians a salary all year. But our musicians know that we're trying and that we're writing a lot of grants, and they have money to play these video projects. And so I think in regards to our orchestra, I think our musicians are satisfied that they're not being taken for granted and that we're trying hard to find work for them. In fact, let me say it a different way, find meaningful work for them. Is in regards to the Met, it's really shocking because their budget is so great. And yeah, and you know, I don't think that any of the Met musicians believe that they would get full salary for being silent, but they should get something. They really should get something. I mean, these are musicians who've had the rug pulled right out from under them. And they were making a big salary, and that's how they were living. And now, you know, what can they do? And it's unfortunate that the Met has been so unsupportive of them.
Mm-hmm. It seems like I don't know, maybe a big part of your job is building trust between the orchestra and the players and yourself. It seems, talking to people, that they definitely trust you. So maybe you can, I don't know, share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, it's something I really aspire to, and the only way anybody can trust you if you tell the truth. And so I do tell the truth. And sometimes I tell what they don't want to hear. And I'm not ever confrontational. I'm a good listener. But I think the bottom line is they know how hard I'm working for their orchestra, our orchestra, to stay alive and to have a really healthy presence in our community, even during the pandemic.
So, how do you think? I have some friends, and I'm thinking of them specifically right now that, as you said, like with the Met musicians had the rug, pulled from under them in March, who have given serious thought. Some have actually gone through with this of finding a different line of work, right? So I just wonder your thoughts. What do you think a career in music? How is it going to be changed from all of this? Do you think things will go back to the way they are, or the way they were? I mean, again, thinking about the Met, I saw somewhere that about a third of those players have actually left the New York area, and I know actually some of them that have started getting degrees in something else.
Yeah, I know some musicians who have done that too. I think that music educators, especially college music educators, have to be really careful about encouraging people to enter the field if they don't have the talent to actually succeed in it. And I think there's a lot of people out there who majored in music who shouldn't have. They love being involved in making music, but they really don't have what it takes to compete in a very competitive world musically. So there's that reality that I think has to happen right away. I think we accept too many people into professional programs knowing that they're not going to go into the field, and that's just wrong. I understand why some musicians have decided that a career change is the safest way that they can put food on the plates and take care of their families. And I'm sad about that. Because when the pandemic is over and we're starting live music again, there's going to be a lot we have to do to get people back in the concert halls. And to have such a gap or a void from these people who have left make it so much harder. They are, the people we have relied on and who have really held things together. So it makes me sad, even though I respect their decision. But I know that a lot of people in our orchestra are waiting it out. They fully expect that they're going to be able to make a decent living in the field of music. And so they're waiting it out.
Another question from the audience. Do you think that the pandemic will spur a change in how orchestras will manage their budget, or has the pandemic simply fast-tracked an inevitable change?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. For us, for our little orchestra and our little budget, I mean, our budget, I mean, I don't really want to go into our budget, but it's big for a regional orchestra, but it is small potatoes for any of the major orchestras for sure. But through grant writing, through PPP loans, and really loyal patrons who continued to give, and sponsors like Toyota of Scranton, we've been able to, like I said, keep the lights on, pay our bills, give musicians work, and put money away for next season. And I think that's the important thing, because I think that will impact our budget more than anything. The orchestras that don't have any money put away for next season will have nothing to build their season on. And so they'll have to shorten their season, and they'll have to hope and pray they sell enough tickets to fund each concert. But the truth of the matter is, ticket sales aren't going to do it for a long time, because people are afraid to be back in the concert hall. And some concert halls are still saying only 25 to 50% capacity. So I think those orchestras who have a plan B are going to be able to continue with their budget and get things straightened out. I think that orchestras who will get to next season and not have anything in operating or a special fund will be in trouble.
So we have another question. I believe Mr. John Vaida Sr. wants to ask a question.
Oh dear, I better brace up then.
Actually, no, it was me.
Oh, well, okay.
Sorry. You were saying so about, getting back into the concert halls and rebuilding an audience. And I was really wondering if you have any, sort of tricks and strategies up your sleeves, because even before the pandemic, that was a real problem. And I always have this impression that even children that are really involved in music making have a harder and harder time just having the patience and the focus to sit through even one movement of a piece. I mean, it's not just the children, in all honesty. It's a whole generation that's sort of used to consuming in small units. And how do you sell a Tchaikovsky symphony, So
right. Well, you're asking big questions, Christiana. And it's the topic of conversation with orchestras all across the country. I can tell you that the students in our mentorship program are entirely different. They go to the concerts and they love them. And I think it's because of the interaction with our musicians and the chance to hear about the music ahead of time. So there's a select few of our youth who have a fighting chance of being able to stay focused throughout a whole concert. And, I think I think that young people, well, let me tell you a story, okay? We had on our board this fellow who was had never gone to a live symphonic concert, and he was very well known in the Poconos for a raceway there. And he joined our board to help us financially. And the first concert he went to was the Sanderson symphony with organ. And it blew him away. He had never gone to a symphony orchestra concert in his life. And he was probably 30 years old. And he said to us, I'm going to every concert. I love this. You know, so I think, sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, sorry about that. I think that, you know, as many kids who get distracted after one movement, there are people out there who are really excited about hearing it for the first time. And we have to identify those people and get them in the seats. And that's the conversation that orchestras are having all over the place. Plus, we're trying to have that with music teachers too. We do college nights with all the local colleges around here, and we give free tickets. And it's been interesting to see the college kids actually come to concerts. So it's this hit and miss where you keep trying to reach out, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you have to keep trying.
Another question from the audience. Do you think arts organizations will continue to offer live performances via Zoom even after COVID concerns pass?
Maybe. I don't know. A very dear friend of mine who he is the writer of the Aretha Franklin program that we did for our last Pops concert before COVID shut us down. And it was a fabulous concert. I mean, people were dancing in the aisles. I have never seen that at an NEPA Philharmonic concert before. It was so great. His name is Scott Coulter. And he said to me, people are really getting bored with live Zoom performances. He said, people just don't want live stream anymore. They want to see the real thing. And I believe that's true.
Yeah. And the live streamed audience or concert, excuse me, it didn't magically just appear in March either. I mean, it's been going on for years.
Yep.
Have you, just kind of as an aside, have you experimented with programs like SoundJack or any of your orchestra members, or Jam Kazam? There's another program where it's like Zoom in that you're interacting, you know, in real time, but it fixes some of the latency problems, so you can actually play chamber music with somebody online.
Yeah. Now, I don't do it. Pascal Archer, who is our principal clarinetist, is really good with that. So he's and Melise Brunet, who is our music director, they both have incredible technical skills. So they've been doing that for us this year, because we've had many of our orchestra members perform chamber music on these video projects that we've been doing. And they're super organized. And of course, when we did the Nutcracker project, we had, you know, the ballet was learned to a certain performance of the Nutcracker. And so we had to click in and do exactly the same tempos. And it was really hard to put it all together. But Pascal and Melise are so good technologically that I just turn it over to them.
So if I can arrange it, then would you be willing to play some chamber music with Pascal and I?
You mean me do the technical stuff?
No, play some flute with us.
Oh, wow, John Michael, I can't believe you suggested that. For those of you who want to understand the joke, I made the decision about 12 years ago to put down my flute. And if you're a professional musician, you can't pick it up again just for fun, because it's not fun. You hear yourself at less than your best, and it's just too difficult to take. So when I closed that case, I closed it. And I don't regret that decision at all. It was really difficult to practice 3 to 4 hours a day, to teach lessons, to be an administrator for a PAI, which was a full-time job, and to be a mom. I had to give something up. So when John Michael says something like that, it would be like playing with a beginning flute student again.
Well, I imagine though it was a tough decision in the moment, though. I mean, to live.
It was, to get to that decision, it was really tough. But when I made it, I was sure.
Mhm. Yeah. You know, it's interesting how the past 10 months has just forced all of us to be creative, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like you guys are obviously being creative and finding ways of reaching new people, which is great. Again, if anyone has any questions, we'll be probably starting to wrap it up fairly soon, but feel free to chime in at any point.
Well, if I may, I'd like to say something. Back when Christiana was asking me about trying to increase the attention span of kids who are used to instant gratification and a lot of devices in their hands, Christiana is an awesome music educator. She makes students love music theory, which is beyond me. I never loved music theory. And she picks repertoire that makes students want to keep getting better and have pride in the music that they perform. And she's good at what she does. So I should be asking her those questions instead of her asking me those questions.
We have a couple people raising their hand. Brian Redmond, go ahead.
Hi, Brian.
The problems that you've mentioned with classical music and classical music education isn't limited just to classical music or even music education. It's part of a larger cultural trend away from the liberal arts. Classic art, painting, sculpture, dance, you name it. And also subjects such as geography or even English. Like, for instance, Wilkes University is a good example of that change. 40 years ago, it was a liberal arts college and a liberal arts degree meant something. Now, whatever you want to call it, the majority of the majors at Wilkes University are majors in professional degree programs, where the object of the education is to get some kind of certification or registration so that you can go out and make good money. It's a general cultural shift. Right. Now, since all of the liberal arts are in this same situation, is there anything you could learn from some of the other liberal arts, however you want to define liberal arts, who are in the same situation, that might help you cope with some of the problems you have with classical music education?
Well, I'll tell you, the collaboration that we have with Marywood University has been really meaningful. And they've been a school that has really respected the liberal arts program, and they have a very good architecture program and a good visual arts program and a music program and a writing program. And they are in turn very supportive of what we do and try to help us in any way they can. So I see some colleges not giving up on liberal arts. But yes, I agree with you that the emphasis now is on the paycheck and not on the whole person that graduates from a university, which is a shame. You know, Jerry, who you know, my husband, had the civic orchestra at Wyoming Seminary for years. And there was a principal trumpet in that orchestra who was a major surgeon in Lehigh, and now is a CEO of a hospital in Virginia. And he is a brilliant trumpet player. So professional, you would not be able to tell him apart from any professional. He was so good. And I keep telling students, you can have it all. You can have the job security that you want, and you can still continue a very productive and prolific life in the arts. And I think it's true for music and theater, visual arts. And I think that we have to try to make people understand it's not either or. Yeah, and you know who I'm talking about, Brian. You know, Chris. He's just such a beautiful player, and he just never would allow that music to disappear from his life. And that's what we've got to be encouraging a lot of people to do. The other thing I want to say about what you said is Wyoming Seminary had a student named Jonathan Chuang, and he came from Taiwan. And his parents were both principal cello and principal French horn of the Taiwan Symphony Orchestra. And having difficulties in music, they forbade their children to go into music. So Jonathan went to Duke and got an engineering degree. And the minute he got the engineering degree, he came and he said, Nancy, I want to be a conductor. And so he went to conducting school. He went back to conducting school, and he worked really hard and is really good. And he won the Mulco Prize, which is the biggest European conducting competition in Europe, which meant that he could conduct the Berlin Philharmonic, the London Philharmonic, all of the major European orchestras. And now he has a very prestigious full-time job as a conductor in Germany. So sometimes you get pushed down the line of a technical job and a paycheck, and it's not following your heart, and it's just a shame. But I love that story because, you know, Jonathan pleased his parents and then did what he knew he had to do.
I see Catherine Ree has her hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, Catherine.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Catherine.
Oh, there I am. So good to see you. And I appreciate this discussion, and it came at a very good time for me because I'm on a board of a nonprofit for dance and music. So I wanted to get your take on all of this in this pandemic because it's been very difficult. But I wanted to more of a comment in that I actually feel very optimistic because I think people are going to flock to the theater. I think we are we're in it a year. We've been caged in our homes, and it's been a struggle for kids. It's been a struggle for adults and families, and we're dying to see some live performances. So, and I feel with vaccines that we're all, you know, it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be over time that we are going to feel more normal, and performing arts live will be what it used to be. It may be a little bit different, you know, a lot of precaution, probably a lot of anti-sanitation, but I think we are going to come out of this well. But I do think that even more so now, it takes a community to really pull this together, and our politicians. And, you know, you are a huge part of my youth education in music. I'm so grateful. I would not be where I am without you. So, and I pass it on to my children, and they are doing what they're doing as adults. And so it's such an important part of a growth for a young person. And I truly feel there are a lot of studies that kids who have access to performing arts, music, dance, whatever it is, prior to third grade, before those mathematical and reading skills that are set in place, really will do much better academically and graduate from high school and do other things, whatever it is. So I just know on my end here in California, and I'm in a very agriculture area where nobody really cares about dance very much and music. And it really took sort of a certain group of people to just realize, hey, we actually have some talented kids in this community if given the opportunity, if given support. So I've had a lot of farmers who've like dished out money to make sure that our programs continue. It means a lot of phone calls. Maybe you have to send an old video to show them what these kids can do. But they will come to a performance, and these are farmers, and they'll be like, wow, that was really enjoyable, And so I think it can very much translate into a lot of things within the community, and there's a realization how important it is. So I just want to say that I'm optimistic. It's been hard, but I feel it's important for us to continue to do what we can as a community to keep things going. I will say, I'm in California, and when Kamala Harris was running for senator, I had this wonderful opportunity to meet her to talk about arts education in California, especially in some areas that are untapped, not like the big cities like San Francisco, but in an agriculture community, very much like Northeastern Pennsylvania, in a sense that, music education, dance, art is not considered really in the forefront, and there's really underfunded. And so she recognizes the importance of that. So now that she's our vice president, maybe things will change as we get through this pandemic as well.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, and it's just so good hearing your story.
Yeah, so.
And seeing your optimism.
Well, my dad used to take me to see the Northeastern Pennsylvania Philharmonic when I was a kid, and so I've never forgotten it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic too. I mean, audiences for concerts, musicians, we can't wait, to perform again. I don't know about you. I have an epic program in my head for when we finally can come back. So I'm gonna figure a way of making that happen.
And I'll fly to Pennsylvania to see it.
Awesome.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Or we can live stream it maybe too.
We can do that too.
Any more questions from anybody in the audience? No? Okay. Again, Nancy, thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's been a lot of fun. Anything you care to add to the conversation before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, I guess I can assume that everyone who joined us this evening cares about the arts in Northeastern Pennsylvania. And I want to thank you for that. We need people like you as we transition out of quarantine and the pandemic to help us get back on our feet and to help encourage people to come to live performances. And so I just thank you for caring and being with us tonight. And I hope to see you again.
Thanks. And I should actually kind of follow up with what Catherine had said. You were a big part of my life. Literally my whole life, you've been a mentor to me. So thank you for that too.
Oh.
And for, all you do for our community here. So thank you.
Thank you.
If you are free on February 20th, Amy and I will be giving our next concert, free performance of the Martineau 3 Madrigals for violin and viola, which we'll be recording right here in our music room at our home. So hopefully you can join us for that. I want to thank certainly Amy, who's hosting, my wife, Amy Iwazumi, who's also our director of operations and does, everything for our organization. Again, thank you all for being here this evening. Please check out our website, www.nepacms to see what's going on. And we hope to see you at future Music Matters programs. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.